You're listening to the Journey Podcast. Ever wondered how to empower your inner healer and how it would transform your healing journey? Stay tuned for more. This episode contains adult subject matter and some listeners may be triggered by this content. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we delve into the profound concept of empowering our inner healer, exploring how we can tap into our own innate ability to foster healing and well-being. Our guest, an expert in holistic approaches, shares insights and techniques that guide us in connecting with our inner resources and cultivating self-healing practices. We explore the importance of listening to our bodies, trusting our intuition, and embracing a holistic mindset for overall health and wellness. Swirl Jordan Moore Williams is a lifestyle transformation artist and holistic guide specializing in holistic pain management. Her journey began when spinal issues threatened her quality of life, leading her to discover transformative healing modalities. Now she empowers clients to embody vitality and fulfillment through her deep knowledge and personal experience. Swirl's mission is to guide others on their path to vibrant living, offering practical tools and holistic wisdom for lasting transformation. Here is my interview with Swirl Jordan Moore. Hi, Swirl. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because empowering your inner healer is such a fascinating topic for our conversation today, and I think much needed in today's world. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here, and yes, very excited about this topic.
Yeah, I think this is sort of where your passion lies as well. So this will be something we can go into a little bit more later. For starters, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and your story about where you have been and how that led you to what you do today so our audience can get a bit of an idea of who you are?
Yes. My story, I'm going to start, I guess, as a teenager. I had a lot of confusion about being human as a teenager and some religious trauma and just a struggle being a soul in a human body. And I ended up being suicidal and attempting to commit suicide a couple times and it not working, thankfully. At the time, I was quite upset about it, but now I'm quite grateful. And both of those times, coming out from being asleep or coming back into consciousness and wakefulness, I had a doctor, 2 different doctors each time come in and tell me that I should be dead. And anyone else who did what I did wouldn't be here. So I must have a purpose. There must be something that I'm here to do, or else I wouldn't be here. And that really struck me. I hadn't really thought about that before as a teen. I'm sure like most teenagers, I just thought the world revolves around me. And I thought, oh, wait, I'm here for the world. I began a journey within myself of exploration to figure out, well, what is that? And kind of felt like, well, if I'm going to be here, then I might as well have fun doing it, and decided that the best way to do that was to befriend myself and start to really learn to love myself and know as much as I could about who I am and how I could best tune into what this purpose is. And that's what I did for years. I began to explore and I kind of just became my own best friend. And due to the activities that I had growing up mixed with the ways that I attempted to kill myself, I ended up deteriorating my body in a very intense way. And within a year from getting out of the hospital from the attempted suicides, I was having severe chronic back pain, and I was not able to fully move. I was having pain all over my body where I couldn't hug people. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go to school. And it became very, very difficult for me to be in my body, but I was still had this mentality of, well, but I am in my body. And I already did try that. So I don't feel like I'm going to get an easy out here. I went to the doctor. I was diagnosed after many doctors with fibromyalgia, degenerative disc disease, the onset of osteoarthritis in my low back and hips, as well as two scoliosis curves, kyphosis, hyperlordosis. I mean, basically any abnormality that could be going on with my spine was. And I was 16 years old at the time. I was told when given this diagnosis that I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 30. And that was not really what I was looking for. I was like, what? I don't really want to accept that. I don't think that that has to be my story. And kind of having this sense of perseverance at the time because, well, I couldn't even kill myself. Then I'm like, well, I bet I could keep myself from being in a wheelchair. I could figure out how to get out of pain. That really jump started me into exploring, like, what is fibromyalgia? And if my discs are degenerating in my spine, then how can I get them to regenerate? And begin doing anything I could to help myself, from changing my diet, exploring the benefits of proper hydration and mineralization and meditation, movement, sound, breath. And ultimately, that's what I had kind of found was that there's these key categories of being in this like three-dimensional body that if I can keep those in balance, I could actually feel pretty good overall, which was rest, nourishment, hydration, breath, movement, and sound. If I could balance those within my life, within my body, then I could feel pretty good overall. And so I was led to different modalities and anything that worked. And I mean, like, significantly worked, not just like, oh, that helped a little bit, but like, I noticed a significant difference in either my physical pain, my mental state of being, my spiritual connection, my energy levels, the way that my vitality was moving and flowing. If there was a significant difference in any of those areas, then I was like, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to learn this for myself. And then naturally was just led to want to share that with other people. So that's what I did. The more that I got out of pain, the more I wanted to help other people do the same. The more that I found myself, the more that I healed myself, the more I just wanted to help other people heal themselves. That leads me to many years later. I'm well past 30. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I'm definitely not in a wheelchair. And I've found practices and different things that I can do for myself that keep it that way and keep me feeling vital and healthy and fulfilled and inspired even on a regular basis.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and for being brave enough to really be vulnerable when you tell us about where you have been and what you have been through, because I do believe that many of our listeners can connect to that and identify with that and may have been on similar paths. So thank you for sharing that. And with chronic pain and mental health challenges being so prevalent nowadays, these are such important topics to talk about. There are millions of people who are struggling with pain and chronic pain and are trying to find ways to help themselves and to activate that inner healer that they have, that we all have. I find your journey so fascinating that you found things that really helped you and that you now want to share those things. And You mentioned a combination of things that you eventually found that were most helpful to you. And I do hear that a lot. It's not just one thing that provides that magic solution, but it is a trial and error of many different things that eventually end up working together for an individual. Was that your experience as well? Was that a bit of a trial and error to find the things that actually ended up helping you?
Definitely. I tried so many things. And what I found was that certain things resonate with different people. So things that worked for me may not work for everyone. And I also found that certain things that I was finding actually could work for majority of people. It was really those things that I felt the most connected to, that I was like, oh, there's something really unique about this that feels almost universal, that any body, say like breath work, for instance, there's many, many modalities that could be practiced and done. And everyone has lungs that they're breathing from. And therefore, not only are they breathing the air, but when we breathe, we're respiring, we're respiriting ourselves, we're breathing energy into our body and doing different conscious breathing. It's the only system we have that we do unconsciously, but we can also do consciously, which is really fascinating to me. And when you begin to add the consciousness to it, no matter what you're doing, but just consciously breathing, it changes the quality of that and will make an impact. No matter what breath technique that you're doing, it's just bringing the consciousness to it that will infuse the body and therefore help the body. And then, of course, there's ways and different modalities of breath work that you can dive into to have deeper experiences, to have cellular release and huge transformations through breath work. So it can be different, but it was really like, oh, breath has a really important role here. It became one of those pillars for me, just as far as an example. And definitely there are things that, like I said, I tried to really focus on things that would be quite universal, that no matter who you are, where you came from, or what your story is, that if we just apply the overarching pillar and then find where in that, like, do you need shallow breathing? Do you need deep breathing? Do you need continuous breathing? Is it just a few conscious breaths a day? What is it for that person? And that's what I'm more interested in. And helping people tune into their own inner healer is not like, oh, well, you must do it like this. It's like, we're going to follow this roadmap or like little wellness vital spiral that we have and spiral in to the deepest level of presence through all of those different pillars to help get you where you need to be to really feel connected. Ultimately, that's what I found, was that a lot of these issues, these chronic issues, chronic pain, mental health issues, whatever it might be, they can all be healed. And when we activate that inner healer, it's really by enhancing the connection, like our inner connection with ourselves, the deepest levels, the highest levels of ourselves, to that which created all of us, created everything, to source energy itself. So yeah, it's finding little things in that.
Yeah, and it sounds like the journey to healing really is so unique and individual to every person. But are there some first steps that people can take to get them started on that path? I know that when you are, for example, in chronic pain, it can be very overwhelming. And especially if you get a diagnosis that tells you you won't be walking or you'll be in a wheelchair, these are things that can cause a lot of fear. In your experience, where should people start if they are wanting to come on this path of unlocking or empowering their inner healer? What are some things they can do to start with?
That is such a good question. First and foremost, I feel that it does start in the center of the spiral that I just mentioned with presence and allowing yourself to come into the present moment, to be truly where you are and who you are. Oftentimes, there's that fear that you mentioned, the fear that comes from the diagnosis or the fear that's coming from the pain or the stagnation or whatever it might be, that there's so much fear that's being imposed from the outer world, the system, generational trauma, whatever it might be, that we end up getting stuck in fear and locked, which therefore is being locked into a stress state. And so calling yourself forward, calling yourself in, and really pulling your energy inwards, that is, I think, one of the biggest steps to shifting where someone is at. We are always looking out. And when we're in fear and we're in that stress state, we're very outer reactive. That's just how our brains work. We're just naturally outer reactive. And so bringing that awareness and saying, oh, I'm afraid right now. I'm just reacting to this thing that happened to me. Why is that? What is that? Bringing your awareness inwards is the first step. It really is bringing your consciousness and catching it and being like, wait, hold on. I don't actually need to just be in this pattern over and over and over again. There's the desire, first of all, which most people I think have. People who are in chronic pain and really suffering, they want relief. And it's stepping out of that place, really of victimhood, and into more of a growth mindset and knowing that they are responsible for themselves. And that's a huge piece that can be really challenging for people when we're outer reactive and locked in stress and in pain. It a lot of times is that victim mindset. So changing your awareness, becoming present, and choosing a different mindset can be very challenging, but is always the first place to start for me. That's what I always recommend, because if you can change your perception, then you can change your reality.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that in the beginning. I think we kind of think that we're stuck in whatever it is that we're experiencing at the moment. So that is a great first step that you have just mentioned there. I think a very good step forward if you're wanting to make a change, especially if you have pain or mental health challenges. That's a good first step to take. And you touched on fear when you were just talking about that as well. Now, how do emotions relate into that healing journey? We very often hear about physical symptoms and physical things that are going on, and those are really the diagnoses are based around those physical things. So how do our emotions play into that healing journey, and can they help or hinder, and can they actually make pain worse? Or how does that work when we're talking about holistic healing?
I believe they do matter and they can make pain worse. I see emotions as signals that are happening in the body, and they are a reaction to what's going on. And I try to differentiate emotions from feelings, which can be very challenging for people to grasp the concept, because they're like, well, I'm feeling this emotion. Yes, that's true. And oftentimes people are not feeling their emotions, and they end up, instead of moving them through by truly feeling them, the emotions end up blocking, getting stuck somewhere in the body as these little energy pools. If we look at the energetic anatomy of the body, emotions can either just move right through and shift the frequency or the vibration of the energy that's moving, but also they can get stuck. And the longer that they're stuck, the more condensed and the bigger that they get. And an energetic blockage because of an emotion will sit somewhere in the body, and wherever that might be, will start to create a disturbance in their field, which will eventually manifest as something physical. We are energetic beings that are living multi-dimensional lives within a three-dimensional body. They get stuck, and that's where, even on a cellular level, there can be releases and things that can come out. And the more that those things move and are felt and clear out, are really that are revealed and transformed. You can't really just make it go away. But usually when there's something going on, whether it's an emotion or a physical thing, that it's a signal. It's just your body and your life trying to reveal to you that something is out of balance, something's not in alignment, and it's ready to move. It's there to be seen. So, one of the fun things that I like to say is to reveal it, to feel it, to heal it. Because that's kind of the process of it is like, if it's showing up, don't ignore it. Don't be like, oh, and push it off to the side. Like, oh, I don't want to face that right now. Because it can be scary. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of vulnerability to really want to heal yourself. And being able to step into that place and look at what your life is revealing and then feel every sensation that is going to come from that reveal. The deeper you feel it, the more you allow yourself to feel, is the more that natural healing will just begin to happen. And then it's a true transformation at that point. So, yeah, I think emotions have a huge role and we get really caught up on them a lot. And then, like I said, they get stuck in the body because we either don't want to feel them or we want to hold on to them. And it ends up becoming very detrimental instead of seeing them for what they are as signs and then figuring out how can I feel this? How can I toggle my perception to even neutralize the emotional charge around it and allow it to move through to see what it was revealing to me so that I can heal from it. At least for me, as I'm quite an emotional person, it takes a lot of responsibility, having emotional responsibility in the world and within my relationships and the people that I come into contact with, that I have to be highly conscious of my emotions because I know how powerful they can be. There's a level of responsibility of like, I am in an emotional wave right now, and it's probably better for me to go be in nature or be by myself until this wave subsides instead of being in it and making things worse. Like I said, that outer reactive state that I was mentioning before, oftentimes we're emotional. We got this thing going on, and then someone says something to us, and what's going on with us and our emotions has nothing to even do with this person. But now all of a sudden we're attacking them and creating more hurt. And I'm sure you've heard that before, like hurt people hurt people. Guiding ourselves into a level of responsibility to like, I need to handle this emotional wave on my own so that I don't hurt myself more or hurt other people more and let it move through. And quite often, when we take that time to be with ourselves, let the emotions run their course and just like really feel them, they move much more quickly than when we get caught up on them. So I always recommend that. And some people aren't as emotional. And there's a level of responsibility with that too, of like, oh, I see that this person that I'm in relationship with is emotional. They are more of an emotional person than I am. And being able to respect when that person does need to go through their wave and not pushing and prodding and trying to figure it out for them. It's like we can't figure things out for other people. This is a self-responsible journey. Being the inner healer, healing yourself is all about taking responsibility for yourself. It's knowing, beginning, to explore and know, like, where am I on this spectrum and how is that going to affect the people around me? And how is that affecting me? How can I work with myself? Because seems to be how I am.
Yeah. And that can be a difficult process, as you said, for people to actually allow themselves to be in those emotions and to learn through that how to regulate, how to take that responsibility can be a bit of a scary and difficult piece to start with, but absolutely such a huge part of the healing journey. I'm always amazed how we as energetic beings have so much wisdom already that our body and our emotions can actually point us towards the things that are going on if we just take the time to actually listen and tune in. So that is really fascinating. Thank you for explaining that. And in your journey, you mentioned breath work as one of the pillars for yourself. Are there any other modalities that you came across that you have found really helpful or that you have used maybe more than other modalities and maybe do them even regularly in your daily practice? Anything that you've come across that really helped?
definitely. I came across a modality that was like nothing else that I had ever found. At this point in my life, I had done yoga, tai chi, qigong, Pilates, jogging, different movement modalities, was doing breath work, had done different meditations even. And then I found this practice called EDGU. It's EDGU, and it's not an acronym. It stands for the edge of you. And the edge of you is your spine. It's where the two halves of your body meet, becomes the edge of you. And this practice is an evolutionary spinal maintenance practice. I was drawn to just the name because of my chronic back pain. I was like, spinal maintenance, what does that mean? And I should try this. So I tried it in one class. So it's a movement series that is told through a story. So that's where I really fell in love with it. To go back for a moment before I explain it a little bit more, in one class, my very first class, I did this practice. I believe it was like maybe an hour long with a little rest and relaxation at the end. And I had absolutely no back pain. It was gone. And I felt so alive and vital and vibrant. Like my energy was just flowing and moving through my body in a way that felt so exquisite that I was like, wait, I feel so good and my back doesn't hurt. All I did was do this movement practice and it blew my mind. Like I was just like, wow, I need to do this more, which I did. So it's this movement series. It's a sequence of movements that is told through a story. And this story is a life affirming, self reflective story that brings us into our body temple. And we do these inner chores and then we do these outer chores because we need to do our work to be in true service. And most people want to be in service in the world when they are seeking for their purpose in life and trying to make meaning in their life. They're often turned to like wanting to be in service to the world or to humanity or to others and ultimately to ourselves. You do these chores and then you go on this journey, this outer journey, and then there's this inner journey, and then it's all brought together to this like really beautiful place of allowing. And it becomes so fun. You get to take the context of this underlying story, but the content of your life, the way that it's taught is there's the questions asked, and it's like, well, what is that for you in your life right now? And you can begin to own this practice by putting your own story to it, which it's so fun in that way. I mean, we all love stories, and you get to be your own storyteller, all while moving your spine in these rhythmic movements that are crossing the midline of the body. And when that's happening and we cross the midline of our body with our arms, then it actually forces the two hemispheres of the brain to talk to each other and therefore begin to come into balance, all while moving and toggling the spine. Like each little vertebrae gets moved and toggled in all different directions throughout this practice, which means the cerebral spinal fluid starts flowing up and down and through the ventricles of the brain and back down, making your spine fluid. And your energy really begins to move through this like midline, through the conduit of your body. So there's this very physical level of what's happening. Like you're moving your back and your arms. And while you're in this very specific stance, that's what makes Edu different from other movement modalities and even other movement meditations, is that it's done in this wide open, stable stance, which isolates all the movement to the spine. It is designed for spinal maintenance. And at the same time, there's this story going on. And so there's this mental thing happening. It's like you're doing this movement meditation. So you're focused on what's happening. There's like this concentration to the story. So your mind is engaged. And then your imagination gets to come in and imagine all of the stuff that's like being told to you while you're doing these movements. So I found that I just fell in love with this one, not just because of the way that it made me feel the first time I did it, but the way that I continue to feel as I do this practice. It's like what we call a vital stack at the Vitalist Project, because it stacks all of these things. Like, we're so busy in like modern society. We've got all this stuff going on. And then, yeah, there is the pain and there's this situation, whether it's like work or our family or relationships or whatever it is, there's just like there's always something to do. We've always got lots and lots of things to do. And so we don't always have time for the level of self-care that's actually required for our inner healer. I found that this practice helped me combine multiple things. I didn't have to have a meditation practice and a movement practice and my like self-reflection practice of journaling, which I still have some of those things separate because I enjoy them. And doing edu, it was like all happening at once. I was like, I'm tuning in spiritually and energetically. It's like a mental practice. I'm meditating all while moving and my spine and feeling really good. And they say that you're as old as your spine. I like found that to be true. I feel much more vital and even younger now than I did years and years ago when I got that diagnosis in the state of my spine. I definitely believe that this practice is what's helped me not just get out of pain, but actually like regenerate the discs in my spine, get them fluid, get them moving. And I can tell you just honestly and transparently, I start to have back pain. I just ask myself when the last time was that I did edu. And quite often it's like, oh, it's been a week or so, or whatever it might be. And then I'm like, okay. And I'll do some movements, or maybe I'll take myself through the whole sequence and I feel great again. So that's where I learned the key of what spinal maintenance means is you have to maintain it. It's just like anything. If you don't use it, you lose it. It's a maintenance practice, and we want to maintain the state of our spine. And it's evolutionary because of the way that we are perpetually changing and growing through the story and through our lives and in our body. And life keeps happening. Stress keeps happening. And that's just part of it. So tuning into an evolutionary spinal maintenance practice has really brought so much joy to my life, where I feel happier and more fulfilled within myself when I do this practice. So much so that now my husband and I are the lineage holders for this practice. And I have a vision of sharing it with as many people as possible because it's helped me so much. I mean, not just helped me, it helps me. It keeps helping me because I keep doing it and I keep maintaining my spine. And this is kind of the one that trumps it all for me. And it really doesn't take that long. When I do it myself in my own practice, it takes me about 20 minutes to do the whole thing. And I feel great and ready for my day, ready to go. Sometimes I do it at night too, as like more of a wind down, which is also really great too. So, and it can be extended. You can do it longer. You just do like more reps and let the story kind of take you further. I think out of everything, that's the one that has had the most significant impact on my life, and that I've really chosen to carry forward and to share with people because it's just so potent.
It doesn't sound like anything I have ever heard before. What a fascinating combination of movement and storytelling. It sounds like an amazing technique that people can make their own to work with in their healing journeys. So thank you for sharing that. And I learned something new again on the podcast, and I definitely recommend to our listeners that they check this out. Now, does this work mainly for back pain, or can you work with us for different kinds of pain and well-being as well?
Well, that's a really interesting question because the spine is the conduit for the central nervous system. And we've got our brains and the little like tail coming out of it, which is our spinal cord, which runs through our spinal bones, the entire vertebrae of the spine. And then it has all these nerves and like little muscles that come out, and those go to all of our vital organs and basically everywhere through our whole body. And even though it's spinal maintenance, it actually can help with an array of different things that could be happening physically. One of the things that I've heard a lot from people over the years is digestive things changing, because a lot of times there's something going on in the spine that is creating something malaligned, that is creating a digestive issue. And when doing this practice, the vertebrae will start to align themselves and kind of just tune up and heal. And there'll be changes in people's digestion. Even people will notice their state of being. One of my students is always like, talked about how she yawns a lot when we do it. And I actually do too, because it starts to turn on that parasympathetic by moving the body and therefore crossing the midline in the brain in that way. And so then we start to get into those levels of not being in that outer reactive state anymore. And even like mental issues that people are having, whether it's depression or anxiety specifically, it's like you can't stay. Oftentimes, anxiety is like a fear of the future, basically, like that's going on, that there's something going on in situations or whatever that's like causing this tightness and angst in the nervous system. And then that creates negative self-talk loops and different things. And so by having this type of a practice, we interrupt that. You don't get to think about all of that stuff because you're focused on the story. And we have a huge focus on the center line of the body, this axis of presence, and time presence streams vertically through the body, through our toro field, and the past and the present are horizontal. So we end up like getting askew, going in one direction or the other, out of balance when we're thinking too much of the future, being in anxiety and or living in regret, grief, and other things, maybe from the past. So there's another aspect that doing this practice can really benefit things such as anxiety or even depression, because it calls you present. It calls someone into the center of their being and into the midline of their body. And you just don't get an opportunity to get yourself out of it again. And not to say that it's like a forever thing, but that's why we maintain it.
Yeah. And that sounds like it is actually fairly simple for people to incorporate this into their own lives. So it sounds like something that anyone could try out to see how that works for them. And I'm curious, you would like to share this practice with as many people as you can. So how can our listeners work with you? How can they connect with you, and how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to vitalswirl.com, and that is a place where you can actually get a free gift from me. That is a really fun vital calendar. It's called the Every Small Step Vital Calendar. And it's a calendaring tool that I designed to help people tune in to themselves and what they would love to do, and then start to apply it into their life. And then that will connect you to me and can lead you into all of these different practices. But you can also go to my website, which is vitalistproject.com, and find out more information there. And I definitely recommend grabbing that tool, and that will take you through a journey to me and to Edu, and being able to practice and learn a little bit more about it and get it into your body. We have it set up to where you don't have to even do like live classes with us, but to where we have it set up in a way in like an online immersion course that people can take on demand. We designed it to be self-paced because people learn at different levels and different rates, but also when we move our spines in this way, it's a lot. Most people have never moved their backs in the way that this practice takes them through. And so we've designed it to be able to really pace yourself as you learn the story and you learn the sequence of the moves, and throughout that time period, you're learning every little thing about it. And then the result is that you know it. You have it in your muscle memory, your cellular memory, and you know the story. And if you know the story, then you know the moves. And if you know the moves, then you know the story. It's designed to have it be that way where people can just have it. They can learn it in the comfort of their homes. The beautiful thing about Edu is that anyone can do it and it can be done anywhere. It can even be done in a wheelchair. So there's no limitation to it. And that's one of the reasons actually that I became even fond of it, is that like I didn't need anything special. Like I didn't need all the fancy yoga gear and like cool clothes. I could just do it. I just needed space around me and like flat ground or an armless chair. I just can do it. I mean, like one of my favorite places to do it is at the gas station, actually. While the gas is pumping, I'll just be like, oh, which move do I want to do? And I could just feel into it and start doing, whatever, 3 minutes of movement of Edu while I'm waiting for the gas to pump before I like get back in and go. So it's really accessible. And that's what we've done, is really try to make it as accessible as possible. And then people love it. They can keep following us and eventually do teacher trainings and different retreats and gatherings with us as well.
Amazing. And we will be linking to all of Swirl's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on how you can connect with her, how you can find a program that works for you if you'd like to try that out, and how you can stay informed about any events that they have coming up. So be sure to check the show notes for that. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed our journey into empowering your inner healer as much as I have. I can't believe how much I have learned again in this time that we've spent together. And thank you so very much for coming on today and talking to us and bringing this wisdom that you have gathered over the decades in your own life and sharing that with us. Thank you so much for your time, Swirl, and coming on and chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be with you.
Yeah, and I really hope that our listeners are going to share this episode far and wide so that many, many people can try out this modality and see how that works for them. And of course, we'd love to know if you have tried this or you are going to try it. Let us know what you think and how that has worked for you. We definitely want to know more about this. So thank you very much, Swirl, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.